Hello everyone, thank you for being here with us today. We are here at Soul Matter Studios with Isabel Glatthorn. She'll be showing us how to build a bonsai container today from scratch. It should be a lot of fun, so let's go ahead and see your studio and meet Isabel.
Hi.
Hello, how you doing?
Welcome.
All right, so here we are, Soul Matter Studio. Beautiful place you have here.
Hey y'all. You can see here a lot of different things that are in production. I do a lot of functional dishware. I make planters and I make mugs. Here you can see about 52 mugs that I just finished up that are dry and ready to go into the bisque kiln. So I make a lot of different things for restaurants, for hotels, for individuals, for people's homes. Over here you can see some of my work. I do some sculptural work. These are my goddesses that are hand-built, coil-built sculptural pieces that I slip cast, and then I use liquid clay, which is called slip, to basically create all of these molds. I also do a lot of plateware. Here's some stuff from my new collection. Show you. So this is the side bowl, a lot of things for eating. The side plate in a new glaze that I just made and called the cenote. So yeah, I have a few new glazes that I've been working on, and I'm really excited to make some pots today.
Beautiful. How long have you been at this craft?
So I started making pottery when I was about 13 or 14 years old. My mom was a potter. She taught pottery classes, and always kind of had clay around, and something that I played with as a kid. And just like, I actually had a second grade like book that my teacher made where they asked everybody in the class, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I, like, in my little second grade handwriting was like, I want to be a clay artist and a doctor. So didn't go with the doctor thing, but my second grade self knew, you know, what I was gonna do.
Manifested it all. That's beautiful.
Here we are.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I've had Soul Matter, my business, here for the last 4 years here at Splinter Group. And before that, I worked for a couple of different potters around town, like production pottery, studio artist, and a community studio. So I was working for 3 different people in different, like, I guess, disciplines within the ceramics world. So this was kind of like my dream was to do restaurant work and make functional things for people to use. So that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what will you be showing us today?
Okay, so today we're here in my pottery studio and we're going to make a bonsai pot.
Wonderful.
We're going to make a rectangular shape that is going to have 4 little feet on the bottom and the perfect holes, and it'll be a lot of fun.
All right.
Yeah. Hello. Welcome to Soul Matter Studio once again. So we're going to start out here with these 2 slabs. So slabs basically just are smashed down clay. And I have this super fancy slab roller that I use to make a really nice consistent slab. I basically put a chunk of clay off my block between these 2 pieces of canvas, and then roll it through these 2 big metal things, and it comes out on the other side with these really nice slabs. I made these in advance before our video so that they had some time to set up and firm up a little bit. But if you're doing this at home, you can use a rolling pin and then 2 thin-ish boards, basically the thickness that you would want your slab to be is the thickness of the boards, and you'd basically put one, whoops, some stuff on there. on either side of your piece of clay, and then you use a rolling pin and use this kind of as like a level. So definitely don't need a slab roller to do this, but I have one, so it makes it easier. So basically what happens after these slabs come out from the canvas, they have the texture of the canvas on there, and I want it to be nice and smooth. So I use this tool. This tool is the best. This is called a rib, and they make ribs, the clay people, they make ribs in various hardnesses. So this one, the red one, super flexy. I've had this one for like 10 years. These things last forever. This one is the medium hardness, and then the green is the most hard. And for this purpose, it doesn't matter that much really which hardness you're gonna use. But I like this yellow one because it's perfect. Basically, I'm gonna take this rib and drag it across the surface of the clay to get this really nice, smooth texture. And then I would flip the slab over carefully and do that also to the other side. This helps with just like getting any little crummies off. And I'll use the rib throughout this process to keep my clay nice and smooth and straight. It is a massive hack. So you can use a lot of different things for ribs. If you have like a scraper, if you have a spatula, that could work, like a flat side of a spatula. But yeah, definitely Armadillo Clay in Austin. They've got all the stuff. They're the spot. They're the only clay store from here to San Antonio. That's where you could buy really any of these tools and the clay. They make the clay there as well. I am using a clay body called Bonsai-YEAH, which it fires to cone 6. So in the clay world, making pottery, there's basically 3 firing temperatures. There's low fire, mid fire, and high fire. Cone 6 is mid fire, cone 10 would be high fire. Basically, it's referring to different amounts of heat work. So it's kind of like time plus temperature equals a cone. So cone 6 is about 2,222 degrees, and that is the temperature that this particular clay body will vitrify at, which means that it goes from being like a porous, like a terracotta pot with that is not waterproof and would like seep water out, to becoming like a vitrified, like a stone that doesn't absorb water. So that's basically the temperature where this particular clay is formulated to become waterproof, vitrified. So you want to make sure that if you're making a pot, you're familiar with what clay you're using and what firing temperature you're going to fire it to. Because if you were to put, per se, a mid-fire clay body into a high-fire kiln, it might just melt into a puddle because the clay can't handle that level of heat. Alternatively, if you were to use a cone 10 clay body in a mid-firing, it wouldn't vitrify, so you would basically have a pot that was absorbing liquid and becomes weak over time because it's absorbed and dried out and absorbed and dried out, and so you're going to wind up long term with some cracks. So want to be clear on your type of clay, and this one is called Bonsai-YEAH from Armadillo Clay. They make it right down the street. So, and I really like the way that this clay looks when it fires out. When it's wet, it's this like nice chocolatey brown. When it is bisque fired, it looks like this. It's like a peachy color. And just to explain a little bit about the firing process also, everything goes through the kiln twice, so 2 different firings. So the first time, you wait until your piece is completely dry, and that's what we call greenware, is pottery that hasn't been fired at all. Here I have some greenware mugs over here, and this is what the clay looks like when it's all dried out, and these are ready to go in for their bisque firing. So right now it's really fragile, and I could easily like drop this and break it, and it would just shatter, and not even shatter, it would just crumble. And then once it goes through the bisque firing, which is a lower temperature than the point where it would become vitrified, it looks like this, and it's very absorbent. And at this stage, you would then dip it or paint it or pour it with a glaze, and the clay is absorbent, so the glaze is going to basically get sucked up into the clay body. Once the piece is vitrified, it's not going to absorb, it's going to repel water like little rain beads. So you want to make sure you're glazing after bisque firing. So got to bisque fire stuff, and then it goes back into the kiln once it's glazed for its final glaze firing at 2,222 degrees. So that's kind of the journey that this piece will go through. But today we're just gonna make a wet clay thing. It's gonna take a couple days to dry out. So these slabs have been sitting out for about an hour, maybe a little longer than that. So they're a little bit stiffer than when I first made them. And that's kind of perfect, because then I can cut into them and they'll stand up a little bit better. Other thing is, like, if your clay is too soft, you can use a butane torch or a hair dryer to firm it up a little bit, and I might hit it with my little torch at some point during this process. Okay, so step one was making the slabs, but step one for building this piece is going to be cutting out a rectangular bottom for our pot, which I think, because this one is nice and long, I'm going to use this one for the base. And I'm basically just going to kind of freeball it. You know, it's like I want to conserve, you know, like when you're making cookies and you're cutting out cookies from a cookie sheet, you kind of want to be efficient about like where, you know, and just put the cookie cutter like randomly in the middle. You want to kind of parse it out. So I think looking at this, I kind of want this to be nice and big. The other thing is that clay shrinks at about 13%, which is quite a bit when you make something, especially I remember when I was first beginning making pottery, I would make something and then I would put it out to be fired, and I would come back and I'd be looking for it, and I'm like, where's my piece? That's it, it's tiny, you know, like, so you want to definitely take into account the shrinkage and kind of make something a little bit bigger than you want the final piece to be. So I'm just going to use kind of the width of this as my guide, and I'm also going to use a ruler, which I have right here. Maybe I should wipe it off so it doesn't get little chunks on it. I like to keep my area nice and clean, because you can have little like balls of clay or little balls of dry clay that can get embedded in things and then make a little imprint. So I'm going to use this ruler to get a nice straight edge. I'm going to cut a straight line. So this is actually about 12 inches, almost 12 inches wide. I think that might be too big. I'm basically just going to cut straight down. This is my little fettling knife. You can use an X-Acto knife. I wouldn't use a kitchen knife per se, but if you need to, you can. Okay, so I think I'm gonna make it about 6 inches wide. So now I'm gonna cut one side of this 6 inches. I'm just kind of eyeballing this to try to line it up with the cut I just made to get a nice right angle. But I'm definitely not that worried about it being perfect. You know, that's kind of the beauty and the fun of handmade stuff, where it's like, you know, a rebellion.
Wabi-sabi in it.
A little wabi-sabi in it. Yeah, there you go. So over here, I'm just gonna, now I'm gonna like look at it and I'm like, okay, you know, how long and the dimensions like to one another. I'm just gonna make another cut for the other side, right about here. Yeah. So again, I want to make sure that I'm lining it up as best I can, but eyeballing it is fine. So with these, I'm just cutting straight down to get this nice shape. And then I'm going to come over here and make my last cut. So you can make these really as big or small as you want. It of course depends on your bonsai and what you're making it for. I don't want to make it too wide because this bottom is still pretty soft. So for the purposes of this video, I want to make it small enough where the bottom's not just going to kind of droop in. So here we go, this last cut. Okay, cool. So this is going to be the base of our pot. Just carefully pick it up. And as far as thickness goes, I'd say this is about 1/3 of an inch. It's about 1/4. Yeah, it's about 1/3 of an inch thick. And you could make it a little bit thinner, but I think that's just a nice, comfortable thickness to work with where it's not gonna warp. If you make it too thin, it can like kind of potato chip, warp as it dries. Okay, cool. So I still have a bunch of this slab. I'm gonna just cut these pieces off. And the thing is with clay is also you don't wanna let it sit out for too long. Like I'm gonna recycle this clay. So I'm gonna put this in a piece of plastic. So these are my best friend. Sorry, Earth.
Don't you reuse them?
Yeah, I reuse them for years, actually. I have some of these pieces of plastic I've had for 4 years. And I think this came from a dry cleaning bag. You want it to be like this nice thin plastic. I've used like a tablecloth, like those plastic tablecloths, you know, that are pretty thin, like those white ones. I have some of those. Home Depot also sells
Those thick bags.
those thick bags. Maybe are a little bit too thick. You don't want it to be too thick, or else it'll kind of like hold a shape, and then it could like press into your piece. So you want it to be this like really flexible, like maybe one of those bags that they don't make anymore. Those little grocery bags.
The white ones.
Those are pretty good.
Thank you bags.
Yeah, the thank you bags. So those would work for sure. Boom. Now I'm gonna cut out these sides also. So I'm really just gonna line my slab up to this piece and cut out the sides. I mean, I'm basically making a box here, you know. It's kind of like one of those paper fold where they have the lines and then you fold it up, you know, maybe like a cake box kind of.
What do they call that style? That way of making?
Slab building.
Slab building?
Yeah, slab building. So I want to make sure it's deep enough, but not too deep. I think maybe about 2 inches deep works. So I'm just gonna cut, and then it's gonna shrink a little, so I'm gonna give it a little bit of extra. Maybe I'll do 2 1/3. So just make a little mark over here. Just gonna make marks for where I'm gonna cut it for now, because I want to get a nice straight across. So I'm gonna make 2 sides like this. So I'm basically making 2 of this exact same shape. I'm gonna wind up cutting little diagonals into these so that they can kind of come and seal up once. Yeah, miter cuts. I should know that. I've worked with all these woodworkers, you know. And then I'm just gonna use this as my blank so I can have 2 that are exactly the same. just cut along the side. Just making my building tools here. Okay. Hopefully these don't stick together too much. Two sides down. Okay, so now I'm gonna create just a flat line so that I can once again put my bottom up against this other piece and have a nice clean side to start with. And this one's like nice and firm. This is great. The firmer the better, really. So I guess I will use this as my height. Just line that up there. And then this one is gonna come up against this side here. So, just cutting out the shapes. Make my cuts at the same time. And it's always better to like make it a little bit too big, because then you can cut more off later, than it is to make it too small, because you can't really make it bigger, because I've gone through this whole process of the slab making and everything. So I might use some of these little pieces to make my feet. I'm just gonna keep these. Might do the torch in a second, but for now I'm just gonna let it sit there while I make some feet that will then go on to the bottom once we assemble our box. Yeah, so there's so many cool feet in the bonsai pot world, like the little dragons. Like, I love those little things. Yeah,
feet, yeah,
all kinds of little different things. So I'm gonna do a little bit, been thinking, I was like, you know, thinking through what I'm gonna make today, and I kind of just want to do some little decorative features like carving, pressing little stamps into them, kind of maybe with a tool, with a random tool like something triangular, and just kind of give it a little decoration. That's kind of the fun part. Once you get the box made, you can be like, ooh, okay, like, am I gonna make a little angled edge here, and am I gonna put a little gargoyle foot on it, you know?
That's awesome.
You can do anything you want, or you could just have a really basic foot. There's a lot of different styles, but I really like the footed ones. So I'm just gonna cut a couple little chunks. It might be too big, but the key is that I want them to be, you know, basically the same size, because I don't want to have one foot that's gonna be like slightly bigger and then prop the pot up, you know, and it'll be like not level. So I'm gonna do my best to keep these feet as similar in size to one another as possible. I mean, I really could, if I just wanted to do something super simple, I could just like take this and make it like a perfect little circle or something and just stick it on the bottom, you know? So you can make them as simple or as decorative as you want, and I think that's kind of the fun part of hand building, is that, you know, you can do anything. You can do anything with it. It's just earth that you're molding. Okay, so I have my 4. Maybe I'll just make an extra one in case I screw up, or 2. Okay. So these are gonna be about the same size amount of clay. Put this other stuff back in here, and I'll maybe make another one with the rest of the slab, actually. You could make a couple of pots with that slab stuff. So I guess I'm gonna make these into little balls. So, okay, I'm making them kind of, I wanna have a nice little base for them to sit, for the feet to sit on, and kind of just gonna make it like that, and then I'm gonna leave a little, like a little nub out. There are technical words for these things. And then I'm definitely gonna leave a nice place for it to attach to the pot as well. So I guess I'm gonna like give it a little scoop. This is kind of just happening in my head as it's coming. I guess that's the thing about art. So now I'm going to choose a few of them to work a little bit more in depth on. This is the part that I would probably spend the most time on. Like if I'm just sitting here alone doing this, I would probably spend like an hour just making these like really cool looking. Cool. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. Okay, so I'm eventually gonna make holes, you know, for wiring and for drainage in this. So I think I'll probably do a few drainage holes. What do y'all think, like 5? I feel like you guys are the experts on this, so.
Definitely one big one in the middle.
One big one in the middle.
And maybe like 2 here, maybe?
And then 2 more, yeah. That's kind of what that was the other option. And then some little holes.
Yeah.
And I have these cool little tools, but they have this angled edge and it's just like a tube. Okay, so I'm just kind of marking where I'm gonna do that, but I'm not gonna do it yet because it's gonna compromise the stability of this slab. So I'm gonna put the sides on first and I'm gonna put the feet on and I'm gonna do the holes last.
Did you find that out the hard way?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, I would prefer to make the holes once it's leather hard, like tomorrow. But I will, because yeah, I just want this to set up and be like nice and flat as my bottom piece. But yeah, so there's a lot of things kind of like once you get it done where you can come back once it's leather hard. So leather hard is basically like, it's not completely dry, but it's like carvable, but it's not like gonna squash if you like touch it. Right now this is pretty wet. It's definitely got a little crispiness on the edges, which is perfect. But it definitely helps to have, you know, a little bit more stability when you're like puncturing. Okay, so basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take, so this is gonna be the top edge I'm gonna decide, okay, this is gonna be my top here. And then on all the other sides, I'm going to create my mitered edge. So I'm just gonna kind of go in at an angle here at like a, I don't know, 60-degree angle maybe. Don't want to overdo it. And it's not perfect. I'm not a machine. But just gonna give it a little bit of room to come together when I put it all together. So I'll just go through with each of these pieces and cut my little mitered edge. So I'm also gonna do that on this bottom piece. Any edges that are gonna come together, I'm gonna give it this little angle. Okay, so I'm just gonna put these pieces aside like as I'm cutting them out, and with these side pieces I'm just gonna give them a nice like look and see what edge I want to use. Like if there's one edge that's a little bit messed up, that maybe isn't the side that's gonna be on top. You can fix it, you can always fix it. So I'm just like working on my little edges here. Trying to make them fit nice. Okay. Now I'm making slightly bolder cuts and I'm hoping I don't overdo it, because I was underdoing it before with the angle. So now I'm just kind of mocking it up, but what I'll do is when I actually put it together is I'm going to slip and score. I don't know if anybody took pottery classes as a child, but slipping and scoring was pretty memorable for me. And I'll show you about that in a second. Not a whole lot of slipping and scoring and throwing pottery on the wheel, but definitely, unless you're making mugs. Anything that's getting attached, basically. Okay.
Look at that.
What do you guys think? Oh my god, is it too tall?
Oh no.
No, it's
Especially if
perfect.
It's gonna shrink 13%.
Yeah.
It'll be just fine.
Okay.
Wow.
Here we go. Okay, so now for the slipping and the scoring. So I have, I was talking about slip a little bit earlier. Slip is basically like a clay slurry with water. Sometimes people add different ingredients to their slips, but I don't. I actually just use, I have my little, I almost drank this earlier. It looks like coffee, but it's not. It's clay. It's slip. It's actually from my throwing bucket. And I just like poured some of this slurry in here. And I've got my little paintbrush. So here are my tools for the slipping and scoring. I've got a cup of slip, and I've got my scoring tool, which is this crazy little wire thing. And it basically is going to be cutting some teeth into these mitered edges so that they can squash together and become one. So here we go.
Giving it some tooth.
Yeah, the teeth, and then I put the slip on too. So I make the teeth, I put some slip, and then I make more teeth, and then it kind of makes like a little muddy spot. So this is kind of the last time I'm going to be able to smooth out these inside walls. So I'm going to hit it with the rib again. Make them nice. And I will start with this outside edge. So I'm just gonna do these little motions here, make some little grooves, and it's okay if I cut into the inside. I might actually like use a little coil to attach that later, so it's okay. It can all be smoothed. So doing that on both sides, I'm going in multiple directions to make sure it really gets on there, because the last thing you want is to not have a good connection and then it cracks when it dries, because it puts it under some stress as it's drying. The clay drying, it's shrinking, and that's how a lot of things come to their downfall. Okay, so I'm going to use some of the slip and just, this is very watery slip. Actually, I'm going to use this instead. It's not as pretty, but this is the stuff, and the bottom of this is where you get the good stuff. So now chunky, a little more chunky. Yeah. Okay. Sorry if that's in the way. Okay. So I'm getting this little slip, and if you're just hand building and you're like regularly hand building, you could just put some of this clay in a blender with some water. That's what my high school teacher used to do for this purpose. It's basically clay glue. Some nice glue here. Now they're ready. Okay, time to assemble. This one be next. Oh yeah, this is some good content right here. Right there. Press these together. So see the slip squeezing out of there as they join together. It's pretty satisfying. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. Here we go. Okay, so now, here we go, guys. Here's the box. And I'm just gonna kind of go over every little attachment and make sure it's all squeezed in. You don't want to be too rough with this part because you could wind up like creating these kind of grooves, pressing too hard. Wow. Wow. There we go. If you have like a piece of foam or something, it can be pretty helpful for like working on the bottom of something. This is looking pretty cool, guys. Happy with this so far. The height is nice. The height is even, level. Okay. That's what it looks like underneath. So now I'm gonna put it upside down on my piece of foam here and just work on these attachments here. Without denting the bottom too much. There. Pinchy. Pinch, pinch. Pinch pat.
It's a hollow.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take my rib and just kind of smooth over that a little bit. Get all these little corners all nice and tight. Now I'm like afraid I'm gonna dent it when I flip it over. And just kind of reset that bottom a little bit. And then, of course, more seam work on the inside. I'm just gonna use my paintbrush because I can't really get my finger in there. If I was really like uncertain about it, I would use a little tiny coil of clay and just press it into that corner, but I'm feeling pretty good about the seal on the outside, so it also kind of changed the shape of the inside here. So I'm just going to use a little bit of slip, smooth out those little marks from the scoring, and smooth that slip down in there. Okay. And I can always kind of go back and do more. There's so much more. There's always more. You know, it's like I could literally sit here and just like make this perfect like all day. But I'm gonna, for the sake of this tutorial, I will carry on. Okay, so I want these feet. I'm not gonna know for sure if these feet are like perfectly perfect until I put them on, really. But like, how do I want to put them on? I think I'm gonna have them kind of facing out like that way. Does that look weird?
I kind of thought you were going to use the flatter, the bigger edge on the bottom there.
Like that? Oh, like inside?
Got like flipped upside down.
Oh. Oh.
Like a bathtub.
That's kind of cool. Wait, I like that better.
I thought that's what you were going to do.
No, that's not what I was going to do, but I do. Now it
Now it's
is.
a collab.
Now it is. Now that's what I'm going to do because I think that's just looks nicer. Cool. Great. Thanks. Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Los. Okay. So again, we are going to be slipping and scoring. So I'm going to, since we're doing it that way, I'm going to make these a little bit more corner-like so I can continue like this shape down to the foot. But I don't want it to go in, I just want it to go straight like that. Maybe it'll go in a little. Okay, so these are all the big decisions being made on the fly, and that's how we do it. once again, we're gonna use the scoring tool to create some teeth. Make a nice indent. Sometimes the tool will get a little gunked up. And you can also use, like, they make ribs, metal ribs that have like teeth in them. You can use just a pin tool and just do each one. It's just a little bit faster to use this kind of thing. So I'm gonna gently also make a little spot on here. Make sure I'm getting like plenty of these scrapes. Like sometimes when I have like beginners or people that come in and make things will break, and then I'll be like, I'll look at it'll break off and I'll look at it and it'll be like, just, you know, they did like one of those. And I'm like, that didn't work. So it's important to make sure you get a real nice,
like hatch marks?
yeah. I'm gonna do a nice deep score. Okay, so one side has the slip, and I'm pretty much just lining it up so this corner looks nice. I'll just kind of wiggle it on there, like that. So now I have this nice edge. And then just like squash it on there. And then I would like maybe use a little bit of this clay and like put a skinny little coil around the edge of that. Is it raining? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Alright, the water today. Just the greenhouse. Alright.
45 minutes of your life. You can do whatever you want with.
My garden isn't not as big as y'all, so
So basically I'm just using that little coil to sort of be an attachment, guiding. You can kind of press it into both the foot and the pot. One way.
yeah, that way it looks like one solid piece.
Yeah. So it's given that. And then it's like also if I dent this, I can turn it over and then like press it back out the other way. But yeah, I mean a nail-less finger works pretty well for this. There's also, I have this little tool that I use sometimes, like something round like this. And kind of like,
Everything's a tool.
yeah.
Ceramicist. Lord, I apologize.
Okay. So I'm just gonna do that. This kind of has this little like spot that's sticking out. I don't like that. Perfectionist. But yeah, I mean, cool organic wabi-sabi stuff is really cool too. It's gonna wind up looking like that at the end of the day. So yeah, cool. Okay. So pretty happy with that. Definitely not perfect, but I don't really want it to be perfect, right? Try to give it a little bit of freedom to look handmade. But you know, if it was just me in here, I'd probably spend hours just making it so perfect. But let's carry on. Let's move on. Okay. So now, moment of truth. Slip her over and see how it goes. Okay. Haha.
Cool.
Yeah.
Dude, that looks cool. Looks super cool. Ooh, this is like the way that this is looking, like I want to make these like angular cuts now, like under here, so it like looks like waves coming up into it or something. But yeah, that looks pretty good. It's pretty good, y'all. I'm like, does it look, this is how I measure. Does it look like it's straight to y'all? The other thing is, like, once it gets a little bit drier, I can go in and like shave off a little bit. I have a tool called a Sureform, and this is kind of like a little shaver. So if I wanted to like shave off the bottom of like a leather hard piece or even a bone dry piece, I could just kind of like and then shave off a little bit. So that helps. But yeah, so I think this looks pretty darn good. And I think I'm just gonna let it set up for a while. Okay, so this is gonna get dry, or it'll be leather hard next time I come see it. And then I will cut 3 holes. So for the big hole, I'm gonna use my little knife and just like eyeballing it, probably cut like that. Yep. And then probably do another one over here. Over here. This part doesn't really bother me if it like looks, it doesn't look perfect, because this is a functional hole. It's for drainage. So no one's gonna see it once there's a pot, once there's a tree. They'll never know. How would they know? Cool. So there's that, and then would use this little tool to make those nice little holes for wiring. And I think I'll do like, what do you guys think? Like one there, one there, one there, and one there?
Perfect.
Yeah, I think I just do it. Okay, I'm just going for it. Yeah, these little hole punchers are really nice. I'll just try to line it up as well as I can, but who's to say? But yeah, with the knife, I'm gonna be like sawing it. I don't wanna. Cool. Yeah, you think those are big enough for the wires, y'all?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah? Got my practitioners with me, weighing in. Yeah, so, and then like, it does create like a little bit of an edge where that's something that I would clean up more once it's a little bit drier and less impressionable. So young and impressionable. Cool. So,
Fantastic.
there we go. And it is getting a little bit warped, so I'm gonna flip it back over. Just the whole thing's kind of bowing. Aha! Oh no. Okay. Yeah, don't want that. Don't want it to bow. I'd rather have the bottom bow in because you couldn't see it as much than have the whole thing kind of slump down. Okay, cool. So basically what I'm gonna do is wrap this guy up with a little bit of breathing room, like, so that next time that I come to the studio, I can go in and kind of like shave off some of these little imperfections and make it perfect.
All right, so this brings us to the end of the process. Isabel, thank you so much for having us here. It was a pleasure watching you work, and we can't wait to see how this bonsai pot comes out.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks y'all for coming. This was a lot of fun. Great way to spend a Saturday, and excited about this pot. So looking forward to seeing you guys. You can find my work at soulmatterstudio.com and on Instagram at soul.matter.studio. Join my email list. There's a link on the website. So, thanks, y'all.
Thank you.